I suppose we should bring that up. Actually, we some of us here have seen Stranger Things season 5, or at least the first volume of it, because we're splitting it up into volumes now. Yeah, how are you feeling so far? Just in broad strokes about the season so far.
Supremely unimpressed.
Yeah, I figured.
I was told it was neat by several people. It was not neat.
It wasn't neat or tidy. They came back, they came back pretty strong with season 4, and it seemed like, okay, they know where they're going. They've set up the end of the world scenario. It's all coming to this big climactic battle, and then they just immediately walk it back with that first episode, and it's like, everything's kind of back to your usual formula.
How'd you feel about them putting the metal plates over the? That was funny.
This isn't just like say it was even just a physical tear in the ground, like, I don't know, a continental plate had opened up or a volcano erupted or something. Like, putting metal plates over it is not going to fix it or make it go away. But this is a tear in the fabric of reality itself into another dimension. It doesn't matter if you put steel plates over it; it's not going to hold it together. Yeah, that was absurd.
So bad, dude. It's the classic. They were like, this is going to be amazing and it'll be a problem we'll solve next time. And they get to next time like, oh fuck. Seal it up.
Yeah, they walked up because what they wanted was to go back to the usual formula of like the military doing like skullduggery in the background, our groovy gang who are like spying on them and like trying to do clandestine little missions by themselves, and Vecna and the Demigorgons and all that stuff who are like going to undermine all of it. But it's like, why set up that big climactic showdown at the end of the last season if you're not going to do anything with it and you're just going to walk it all back?
I think, like Mulder said, it looked cool. It was a really cool ending visual. It makes people really excited for the next season. And like, the common theme because I'm rewatching all the Stranger Things stuff and most of the stuff they'd done beforehand as well, common theme is the complete lack of a plan. Like, they jump from scene to scene almost by accident. Half the characters they introduce are intended to die in like 2 episodes, and they only keep them because they like the actors. They have no idea where the story is going. They do things because it's superficially interesting or it looks exciting, and then they sort of try very clumsily to backfill all of the problems later, and very rarely does that succeed. It is kind of surprising that they get all the way to the 5th season of basically Netflix's biggest show without any idea of how they got there. No intent to plan forward. That they've reset themselves at least twice. I think season 3, which was pretty awful, was an attempt to swing in one direction, was awful, so they swung back in a different direction, gave us season 4, is an improvement. Lots of problems remain, though. And then they got to the end of season 4 and thought, oh shit, we sort of got ahead of ourselves, so let's row back again so we can go back to inexplicably the town, which is now surrounded by the military and under full quarantine, doesn't seem to understand that that's the position it's in. Nobody reacts to the fact that the hell basically burst out into their world at the end of the previous season, but now they're all back sitting around having nice family dinners. All the conversations that have happened so far in season 5 are every Stranger Things conversation between these characters that's ever happened. It's just relationship drama between Nancy, Jonathan, and Steve. It's Dustin and Steve having little arguments over tech. It's Hopper telling Eleven that she reminds him of his dead daughter.
Oh, yeah.
It's just over and over and over again. And I get the long gaps between seasons might make it seem less repetitive. But if you do actually watch these things back to back, it's unbelievable how little they've advanced across 4 1/3 of a season at this point. They've had 8, 12, 15, 16, 18, 20 plus hours of television for these characters to still be in the position they're in season 5. It's such a waste, especially considering how good season 1 was.
I think for me, the most unbelievable aspect of this whole thing is they expect us to believe that only 4 years have elapsed between season 1 and season 5. Because season 1 takes place in 1983 and this is like 1987. And it's like, your actors have clearly aged like 10 years in that time, like very obviously in a lot of cases. And it's like, this would have been a good opportunity to jump it forward several years and at least try to account for that massive change in the actors. But nope, they're just doing business as usual. It's weird. It's like, you remember in the Bond movies, remember how Roger Moore was like 60 years old or something when he did his last Bond movie? And like, rather than play up to the fact that he was getting old, it was just him doing his usual thing. Just like every time he had to do anything physical, it was a stuntman who did it, and he was still seducing women who were like 1/3 of his age. And it just it went from being silly to like actually uncomfortable and weird. That's kind of what they've done with this show. Instead of like accounting for it and leaning into the time that's passed, it's just all business as usual, and you're supposed to kind of ignore it. It does not work.
Well, they could have introduced an element where they aged 10 years to explain reality. But look, a quick comment and then I have a question. But I only watched season 1, which I thought was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed it for what it was. I'm good. I started watching season 2 and just fell off. Didn't care. I really like this weird character of Barb. Does anyone remember Barb?
Yes.
Justice for Barb.
Justice for Barb. I'll share for those that don't recall. Here's a screenshot of Barb.
She was just like, she became a meme that grew way beyond what she was supposed to be.
I have a Barb from Stranger Things beach towel that was sent to me from Loot Crate. I still have it. All I'm saying is weird thing. So in season 1, you've got the character that disappears. Why can't I think of his name?
Will.
Oh, Will.
Disappears. Everyone rallies. Where's Will? Barb disappears. Crickets? No one gives
so what you're describing is that's actually what happened. The fan base were really happy with Stranger Things, but they all complained about the Barb. They fucked up with Barb. So season 2 overcompensates like crazy.
Oh God, yeah. They
have a full plot line devoted to Barb, and at the end of the season they have a funeral and they basically apologize to the fucking screen for messing up the Barb plotline in season 1, and it's really bad.
Oh my God.
Don't worry, they replicate those mistakes in this season as well with like
they do it a lot.
Parents, where it's like the dad gets like his guts ripped out and like no one cares, but like the mom, same thing happens to her, and like it's this like massive catastrophe that everyone's really caught up about.
You can tell the show has someone it cares about more out of those two, and it's funny to have a Demogorgon take on basically an army of soldiers and fuck them all up, but a woman with a wine bottle manages to like.
I was losing my mind at that point. I was like, because they've never really understood, they've never settled on a like power level for the Demogorgon. Like, as you say, on the one hand, it can decimate an entire platoon of soldiers armed with assault rifles that are just pummeling it with lead. Whereas, like, and it shrugs it off as if it's nothing. But then a woman with a broken wine bottle can stop it dead in its tracks, and like actually like hold it off.
The one thing they did establish, the only thing they've established, is that it's weak to fire. They've known it's weak to fire since season 1. The government's known it's weak to fire since season 2 because they have a whole team of scientists not doing anything else except burning it. And yet, in none of the subsequent seasons does anyone remember that this is the case until there's like the action scene calls for it, in which case a character with a flamethrower is allowed to walk onto the scene and briefly get a victory.
That's even after like 5 minutes of their where they're clearly like self-indulgent reference to they've said it was inspired by Children of Men, and it's just like I don't know where to begin with how Children of Men is doing something very different to a bunch of CG creatures jump around and everyone goes it's not quite the same achievement, but they spend that whole sequence, even though they had some prep time, they knew something was going to be happening, and they're in their base. It's like, where's the fire, guys? There's no fire. And then some dude comes out, he's like, I have the flamethrower, and it kills everything temporarily. I was like, oh, probably should have opened with that.
There's a lot of retarded stuff in that scene. Is like a bunch of soldiers standing in a circle around the Demogorgon, all firing at it. Like, do you understand how many of those guys are going to get killed by friendly fire doing stuff like that? Not every round is going to hit.
None of them have any plans. They don't have any traps. They can see where the monsters are coming from for a good like minute, and they don't plan anything.
Yeah, but it's stuff like that. And as Platoon was saying, like there's a lot of characters that are just stuck in a holding pattern, just recycling the same character arcs. And it pains me to say this. The scriptwriters have never done anything interesting with Steve in years. Like, he's there because he's popular and everyone likes the actor and he's a cool character, but they've never done anything interesting with him.
They've never known what to do with him.
They don't know. He's one of the ones who was supposed to die. They were going to kill him. And then they decided they liked Joe Keery, the actor, a lot, so they kept him. But then the only thing he has left to do, season 2, he replays essentially the arc with Nancy where they're together and then they're not together.
Bad.
See, but then from that point onwards, he's there for comic relief with Dustin. Every now and then he'll get a scene which kind of implies he's maybe had a bit of maturity added to his character, but then the show never acknowledges it, and then he's back to being the goofball babysitter with a baseball bat. It's just
and I love what they did with him in the first season. Like, that was a really interesting turn with his character, where he's like this almost jock character who seems to be shallow and self-absorbed, and you think he's almost going to be an antagonist or just going to get killed off easily. And he actually turns out to be this really decent guy. He's willing to fight for people that he barely knows.
Record, Steve did nothing wrong in season 1.
Nope.
I will defend the shit out of him. When you have a creep
Sure,
taking photos of your girlfriend getting undressed, and all you do is break his camera, he's fucking lucky that's all that's happened.
Yeah, but
and then she starts dating the creeper.
Yeah, but the show tries to present him in that way, and it's like it would be easy for him to fall into that stereotype of just being the possessive boyfriend or whatever who end up killed by the monster. They go a different route, and it's really interesting, and I like what they did there. But yeah, by the later seasons, he's essentially just like a caricature of his former self, and he's just there because he's a fan favorite, and that's it. And it's the same with Robin. Like, I don't understand why that fucking character is still in it. The show doesn't know what to do with her. Maya Hawke, her performance is like nails on a chalkboard.
Funny. Aren't you laughing at everything she says? She's so funny. She's so funny and silly.
But it's like they took a really shit actress and just told her, like, act quirky, be like socially awkward and a bit a bit unusual. That's all she's got. Like, there's nothing to her, but like she gets so much screen time, and I don't understand why.
Did you love, in a room full of like Korea nerds, she references The Great Escape and none of them know what she's talking about?
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing.
I was like, okay,
So
this
good.
is getting to be too much for me. I know this movie. She knows all the actors and the characters. None of them. They're all like, huh? Great Escape?
I was already annoyed at the premise. Oh, great. Another scene where someone says, hey, it's kind of like this movie. And then just by luck, it happens to be exactly like this movie, like every other Stranger Things exposition scene. But then, yeah, the fact that none of them actually have seen that movie is just... So you can't even be bothered to keep people in character for your formulaic exposition scenes anymore. But the caricature problem is basically true across the board. Season 1 is really, really well done because evidently they did have a lot of time to plan it. And, they create all of these characters with a few different backstory elements, and every backstory element is designed to play off somebody else's backstory element. So Hopper having lost a kid, being thrust into a position where he has to save someone's kid. Implied backstory with Joyce. Joyce has implied history of mental instability, so nobody trusts her. Like, all of this stuff is incredibly dynamic, and because it's really well focused, there's only like the first act, you have the A plot and the B plot, and I think there's a C plot. But then by the second act, they've all coalesced, and everyone's always oriented in roughly the same direction. It allows all of these really interesting characters to play off each other in fascinating ways. It's what makes Hawkins feel so alive in season 1. They seem to have just not been able to develop a single one. I can't actually name a character who's meaningfully developed in a positive way. Plenty of them have diminished.
Yeah. If I see the fucking flashback of Hopper's daughter dying one more time, I'd kill myself.
No.
I've seen that really, 7 times at this point. It's ridiculous.
They're milking that shit for all it's worth, aren't they?
It's the same clips every time because they don't have any more clips.
Yeah. And David Harbour is too fucking old now to play those flashback sequences, so that's what
it's
they've got.
sad as well. I was watching some of the behind the scenes making of stuff from season 2, and there's an interview clip with him, season 2, where he says he's still enjoying the character he's got. What he doesn't want is for Hopper to turn into sort of just this fat comic relief joke dad. Oh dear. Oh, I'm so sorry.
I mean, they pulled that back a little bit in season 4, but then like, he's gone way back into it in this season. Like, he's constantly doesn't understand anything. Like, people have to explain things to him in like one syllable words so he can understand. He's perplexed by the idea that guns eventually run out of ammo and have to get reloaded. And this is a Vietnam veteran, by the way. Like, they make a real point of referencing that. He's an idiot, and they've made him a fucking idiot in this show again because that's the role he needs to fill, I guess. But
season 3 was the worst of it, man. He was a full-on clown in season 3.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
I have a question, since I didn't watch any of this current season, and my question is there gay shit? It seems like
there's a lot of it.
Okay, everything Netflix starts out like, oh, this is interesting, and they introduce some gay character out of nowhere. It seems really shoehorned in. So
actually,
does that happen?
If it does happen, I wouldn't say it's so Robin's kind of shoehorned in.
Right.
Will's a little bit different and was, I think, more interesting. Like Will, when I think it's season 4 is when it comes out, and it's like comes out. Huh? But it was sort of at the actor's instigation, because the actor had come out by that point, and they realized that actually they could work this in as a character point. But I didn't mind the way that was delivered in season 4, because they didn't turn it into this massively cliche, fabulous sparkles and rainbows, like, yeah, fabulous piece of gay propaganda stuff. Like, it was quite feelingly done. It's quite tragic and sad and poignant, as opposed to generically celebratory and glad handing and all the rest of it. I liked what they did with it when they did do it in season 4. The slight problem is that season 5, because none of the other characters have any equivalent development, that's kind of the only thing that's going on. And then when spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, but when he decides now that he has superpowers, it's like, oh, okay.
Which was all allegorical for like believing in yourself. Which, by the way,
he's basically told to have the confidence to come out, and then that gets him.
It's weak
the
to me
just,
to have such an incredibly important plot discussion between two characters that mean everything now to each other when they properly talk to each other. What, episode 2? It's like, this is of this season. I mean, like, if they had built this up instead of doing it the way the Duffers do everything, which is, hey, wouldn't this be cool? Let's put it in, like, spontaneously every single episode. They just randomly go, hey, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. It's like, you guys could have planned a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah, because I think Will is another character that suffered from the whole, like, we don't know what to do with this guy phenomenon in the show, and like they've obviously been building up to something with him. And as Platoon said, like, I kind of like the fact that he feels so isolated from his friends now that they're all, you know, they've all become teenagers, and like they're very much interested in girls. He's not. He doesn't understand it necessarily, and he feels like completely isolated from them, and that's why a lot of his emotion comes out that way, which I think is quite well handled. But yeah, it feels like they've tried to then transition that into a whole, you can finally access your true superpowers as long as you just like accept who you are. It's a little bit corny, and it just feels like they're trying to make something of that didn't really exist before.
Yeah. Or
with him.
Didn't exist with that. It didn't need that level of highlighting. It works partly in season 4 because it is quite realistic, and it is quite, I would say, tragic. And the tragedy is kind of the realism, is sort of when you grow up and you sort of realize that your best friend in this case can't possibly return the feelings that you are developing for them, and it's, it's sad and quite relatable. I like the way they did it. But season 4 has the advantage of a lot of other things also going on, which are quite important to keep in mind. Characters are moving, big stakes are being introduced. It's not being shoved in your face as the only thing to pay attention to, because it's in quite a dynamic season. Will benefited from quite a lot of that. I mean, even in season 3, one of the few half-decent things they did was be able to use his complete lack of character development from the first 2 seasons as a character point in season 3, because he spent all of his childhood being possessed by demons. He didn't go through the childhood that they went through, so he's feeling slightly isolated as they've all grown up and grown away, and he's stuck on his own. All of that was, I liked it, and I think they were taking Will in fairly interesting directions as a side character, but they lacked any other characters to be the main character, and so the focus naturally gets dragged back to him. And then the payoff is just this very, very cliche, oh, you can be fabulous if you just believe in yourself. I have the powers now. Maybe they'll do something better with it in the subsequent half of the season. I just don't see it happening. But I don't think it's a fault in the writing of Will so much as it is a fault in the writing of basically everything else in the show.